Today I was treated to a really unique and nice experience. Me and two of my best friends went to our local cinema to watch the original Exorcist director's cut. This is a film that I've always heard about, and it's a big name in film in general. There is a big hype and aura around this film, as well as many controversies in its production. Due to this being a slightly older film than what I'm used to, I was having mixed feelings before going in, knowing whether or not I'm going to enjoy what I'm about to watch. It's also important to mention that I was mainly going to this film just because my friends were going, and I know that this is generally not my type of film, but I thought it's a classic title and it's probably worth me seeing it once in my life, and why not watch it in the cinema? The film starts off from a few characters' different perspectives and has some unique cinematography and camera work. The audio and music was eerie, and it did a good job at setting up an atmosphere from the get-go. Unfortunately though, what this different perspective shift did at the beginning of the film was also throw me off slightly from who I was meant to be following and who the relevant characters were. As soon as we were introduced to Reagan and her mum, the film became a little bit more clearer to me, as I knew that Reagan was the main girl who was affected by this demon or this possession. Although the cinema speakers are loud, some of the dialogue in the film was quite quiet and difficult to hear at times, and I didn't always catch what the characters were saying. This may have meant that I potentially missed important dialogue, but one of the positives that this great audio quality had in the cinema experience was that some of the music and these kind of jump scare moments were heightened because these sounds were a lot more intense. Sometimes I would even look from left to right because I thought that people in the audience were talking, and it was actually this kind of surround sound from the film and background characters and people talking. Apart from some very slow pacing at the beginning of the film, I did generally have an interest in Reagan and her mum as characters, as well as the priest character who had an interesting dynamic of relationship with his mum. Unfortunately, I felt the pacing of the film very often. I don't know if this is due to the director's cut having more extended scenes, as I don't really have the original to compare it to, as this is my first viewing of this film. Despite the pacing issues and a lot of what I would deem as slower scenes and build-up, I definitely would say that the latter half of the film was better than the first. Some of the highlights from the first half of the film were seeing Reagan and her mum have these nice dialogues and connections and sweet moments where they're interacting and talking to each other. And she's this seemingly nice and sweet kid, and you see them getting on. And I guess that makes it more tragic and difficult to see that transition from her as this sweet kid to this possessed child who is going through these difficulties. And also seeing that unfold is intriguing. A slower pace in general for this transition works well and in the film's favour, as it built tension throughout. I really like as well how the film took a little bit of a more scientific approach to trying to help heal and treat her at the beginning. As somebody who is an atheist myself, I find it a bit more difficult to relate to a lot of religious practices and understandings. So seeing people try to rationalise it and what is happening in a way that I would also do is a really interesting perspective to have in the film. There were some really difficult and intense scenes where there was blood being taken from Reagan's neck, and she was in this testing or hospital facility setting, and there was this large machinery which would make this clanking and extremely loud noises, and it felt really anxiety-inducing and claustrophobic. And it really made me empathize and worry about her and the panic that she was most likely experiencing from this kind of poor perspective of this young girl. Another positive as well is I love some of the darker shots in the film where a character's face only has a little bit of light maybe coming off of a window or a mirror, and you just see a slight angle and a little bit of fear or expression from their face, which is kind of amplified by this small shot. Eventually, when you do get to the main hook of the film, which is experiencing and witnessing the exorcism of this child and how it has taken effect on them, it's really good. And especially for the time that this film was made, a lot of these effects appear to be practical and look really good. Although some of them don't always hold up, and some of the line delivery from Reagan as this demonic possessed child, although I believe that it is most definitely dubbed over, these lines that are said are a little bit funny, and I did sometimes find myself laughing, and I think there was a guy in the row in front of me in the cinema who maybe looked a little bit annoyed with me, but It was funny. It's definitely worth pointing out as well that this young actress did an amazing job in this role, and I would rate just her performance alone a 10 out of 10. Like physically, the voice acting, the emotions, everything that she did, she was really committed to this role, and I think that she was the standout actress of this film, and I really bought her as this character. Although I appear to be praising the acting and a lot of the scenes from this film so far, unfortunately I found a majority of the film was unfortunately ruined by this very slow pacing. It was quite underwhelming and didn't seem to really add much to the film. Of course it was build up to what was coming, but unfortunately a lot of these scenes and dialogues felt a little bit unnecessary and almost like they could have been cut from the film. And again, I don't know if that's due to the director's cut or not. Another thing I was hoping for, but the film didn't deliver on, I was hoping it would show how she became possessed in the first place. You have a prologue at the beginning which shows this priest archaeologist who is taking tablets, finding this old artifact, and I think it turns up later in the film near her house, but it's never properly explained how this took hold of her, and also how these tablets that this priest is taking play into effect. How do they affect him? What are they for? And unfortunately, if these were explained, I wasn't able to hear it potentially because some of the dialogue was a lot quieter and more difficult to understand. So I may have missed it. But either way, a lot of these things seemed unfortunately a little bit underwhelming. And I was often finding myself sitting throughout the film. I would have a peak of interest and then a low again. And then my interest would repeat and then low again. And this seemed to be the repetitive nature of the film throughout, until nearer the ending where it hooked and took my interest. It was at its peak, and that seemed to maintain throughout the maybe last 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the film. The ending of the film is shocking, and it ends differently than what I expected. Although I liked the decision that the film made in regards to this, I was hoping there would be a little bit more of an emotional reunion at the end of the film, and a lot more diving into how the characters feel after these experiences and seeing them wrap it up and talk about how they're feeling. But this seemed to resolve rather quickly and the characters just left this location, and unfortunately that felt a little bit underwhelming and I was hoping for a little bit more. Overall, I think due to the pacing issues of the film and this not really being my style of story or film in general, I would rate this film a 4 out of 10. Now what that means is this film is not terrible, but it's just slightly below average for me personally. But it did do well, in all fairness, to captivate and hold my interest at certain points, and I am glad that I've seen it. So if you haven't seen this film, I think it is definitely worth a watch to at least say that you've seen it once in your life. And it also held my interest enough to want to know the fate of these characters and what they were going through and how it eventually ends. So, have you seen it? What do you think? Do you agree, disagree with me? Let me know in those comments. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the video. Until next time.